Trans consulting, transformative radical action necessary for change and evolution. Dreams to be a hub at the intersection of empowerment and artivism. Elle Halo is an award-winning activist, community organizer, and resource navigator. She is a storyteller and a creative. She uses these gifts as an event host, entertainer, facilitator, and moderator, social media curator, and content creator. Elle has dedicated her life to building equity through visibility for QT PLC and continues to build towards lasting impact in the community. The Paris Tika Mahone Memorial Transition Fund exists to build a better future for the queer and trans people of color of Milwaukee, beginning with providing free facial laser hair removal treatments for Black trans women in collaboration with Sheba Sisters Helping Each Other Battle Adversity and Diverse and Resilient. We hope to offer financial assistance for all trans-affirming care, transition-related procedures, and one day, with your help, provide support for trans-affirming surgeries. The future of the fund will be a garden and art installation in the city of Milwaukee. This is a legacy piece for our community, dedicated to Paris Tika Mahone and Ronnie Grace. The fund hopes to be here to support future generations of queer and trans people of color. The fund stands to tell the stories of trans and LGBTQ hate crimes, anti-trans murder, HIV and AIDS awareness, infant mortality, gun violence, fentanyl-related deaths, suicide, youth suicide, sickle cell anemia, long-term COVID, rare lung disease, diabetes, and to honor our lost elders. You can support the Transition Fund by contacting Elle Halo at llhalo@gmail.com or by donating to Love on Black Women with the word trans or the trans flag emoji in the description. Welcome everybody to episode 3, the restream of the Elle Halo show. I had some technical difficulties yesterday, so I'm going to be restreaming the show, but hopefully everything will go smoothly today, and I have everything set up and like even a couple other things I wanted to show y'all. And I'm really still excited about this show, and I wanted to be able to present everything into y'all in full. And okay. I do not own the rights to any music. We are going to cover music today. I wanted to get into Michaela J's album. I wanted to get into the fabulous book Flamboyant by George M. Johnson. I wanted to talk about anti-trans legislation. Every show, I'm always going to have my For the Dolls segment, for the girls, and do topics that are centering Black trans women. And so today I chose to focus on Michaela J and her album and her career. And we're just going to look at some things and take all that in. If you were viewing again yesterday, this is the restream. And hopefully everything's going to go smoothly. Okay. Again, I have Michaela J. We're going to look at some videos, some clips first. Then we're going to move into the music. Then we're going to watch an interview with her. And I'm going to talk about the book Flamboyant. And then on the other side, we are going to have our political conversation for today. So, let's get into it for the dolls. Michaela J is an amazing actress. She was on Pose. We love Pose so much. An iconic show. If you've never seen it, you should definitely watch it. I still have never watched Legendary. I need to go ahead and watch it. And they were a part of like this whole ballroom resurgence that you've seen across the country, that you've seen in mainstream music with Beyonce, with other artists pulling for mainstream artists. Some of the videos I posted this week on the Sheba page with Todrick Hall, some of those had ballroom people in them and different things. Like Todrick Hall is, you know what I mean, making that type of house music and shining a light on ballroom as well. And we love ballroom as well. And so, okay, there is always going to be our For the Doll segment. And so I showed you all that. So let me get into these clips. So Michaela J is an amazing actress and a Golden Globe winning actress, I believe. She's going to talk about it in an interview, her award. This was her 2021 Lexus commercial.
Lexus IS. When going all in on being you makes a statement, is there really
Very
anything
cutesy,
else
very
left to say?
demure.
Make a statement at full speed in the new Lexus IS. Experience amazing at your Lexus dealer. Going all in on being you makes a statement, is there really cutesy, very demure?
Okay, here's our next clip.
Jay here with some Loop Workplace life advice. I've done something embarrassing in my own life, which I think is drinking a whole bunch of matcha lattes when I shouldn't, and I'll be jumping off the wall. So I would say make sure you only have one matcha latte. Don't do about four. Hey, what's up, y'all? I'm Michaela J here with some Loop Work.
Okay, here's our next one.
It's wild to think that I can actually be in a cinematic, huge, big budget film. When have you ever seen a trans woman finally get her moment? And no, I may not be on the screen, but I'm going to be a toy. I'm going to be a transformer. Who doesn't want that? Listen, I can't stop talking about it. I can't even believe I'm actually in it. See, I can.
Okay. 2 seconds. So we're gonna get into the music now. I want to know, was anyone streaming Michaela J's album? It came out in June. It's called 33. Oh, I have a little layout for it. And she, again, is an amazing award-winning actress and was on Pose, but she's a Broadway theater kid actress and musical performer, musician, and she's beautiful. And the album release was really super beautiful. I want to know, was anyone like following her album release? I want to know like what you guys thought about her album, so you can let me know that in the comments. What do we think about how we can better support trans artists? This is always something that I reflect on a lot. You know, the first artist that really made me see it in the music industry, like how we don't support our artists enough and different things, was like Brandy, like when she had her car accident and when she had the album with Right Here on it. And like, you know what I mean? The Brandy fall off. Like, people accused her of falling off at the time. People accused her of falling off with Full Moon, which is an iconic album. And so, you know what I mean? I don't know. That was the first time, like, as a youngster and as like a consumer and a music person, like, that was the first time I like paid attention to, like, we don't support our artists enough. And so I told y'all that last week, I told y'all that I wanted to bring back the music videos and stuff. And so this is like that, but I'm not always gonna like go in like this on someone. I'm gonna give y'all things that are different every show. I'm gonna give, like I said, a For the Doll segment. So always something, some type of content centering Black trans women, and then always something so that we can have a political conversation as well. And so I actually personally, like, in doing this new podcast and this endeavor, my real hope is to really be able to step into a space of political education and of breaking things down to people. So really personally, I'm really most excited about the political conversations that I want to have doing these. But I'm also super excited about music all the time. You know, I went back to school, to LA Film School. I am a media communications major. But LA Film gives technology kits to their students, and so to all my Black trans folks. It's an arts institution. It's a great institution. I definitely think that also in our conversations about how we're preparing for 2025, how we're preparing for the next administration, that we should think about going back to school in a real way as well, and how we can benefit and do those things. Like, I chose my program media because I wanted to learn how to do different levels of production, some technology, some software, some writing, some marketing and development, some technical pieces, filming, etc. So definitely think about going back to school, and definitely check out LA Film School. Very accessible, very demure, very cutesy. Okay. And I want to see, you know what I mean? I want to see that for us and for the girls and for people who were counted out and for people who dropped out and for people who didn't get their chance the first time around. And that's kind of what Michaela J will talk about in the interview as well. I want to tie all of this in together with the book, and that's why I'm going to focus on the book a little bit later. And so we can get into the album, but I love Michaela J's album. My favorite song so far is Wasting My Time. And again, we'll hear more from her in the interview part, but I'm going to get into her album rollout. And so the first thing I'll play is this little thing, I think. Yeah. Billy Porter said, "Work, girl, no problem." Okay.
Draw the line.
I'm trying to look at these blue check marks.
It's not just emotion. I'm only getting older. It's moving on by and you're wasting the time.
Okay. Two seconds. Just looking at everything.
Try to take control of my body. You can never bitch, I'm somebody. My mind is free, you have no agency. To try to make me out what you want me to be. Build me up to fit your wicked scheme. But you ain't never gonna be a part of this. You can never get too close to touch on this. And I don't know you, let me stay still. Walking all the right away weights and chains. Held another way to get out. Yeah, get a grip and get your hands on me. Everything you wanna be. Bionic. Oh, you tryna be like me? Yeah, bionic. Yeah, everybody wants what they can have. Baby, you just have to stay mad. I ain't tryna be attached to you like that. You can search for there's no price tag. I'ma do it my own way. You can't take it. I'ma give all I can take. But you want it. I'm out of the box you put me in. And I don't know you any space now. I'm walking all the other weights and chains. Held another way to get out. Get a grip and get your hands on me. Get your hands on me. Everything you wanna be. You tryna be like me? Yeah, bionic. Yeah, bionic.
Okay.
I don't even know why I deal with you no more. You're just a figment of my imagination. Broken mirrors on the floor. I don't need you anymore. No, I don't. Shattered pieces on the ground. Trying to find what's lost, but I won't. Green lights. I've been watching through the window pane and hurting on the floor. Green lights. Searching through my
Body. Face. Okay. She's gorgeous. Her look was so cute for this.
I've been seeing.
I really personally follow trans people. And like even T.S. Madison, like I followed Madison like way before. Like I've always looked for that reflection even before I transitioned.
Don't you think that I will remember to think that I'm alright?
Beautiful.
And be on with my life. I gotta go, I gotta get away. Save some of me for another day. Green lights.
I think this had 1.2 million views.
Green lights. Searching through my window. Green lights. Searching through my window. I've been seeing. In the morning, when I rise, I know everything will be alright. Searching through my window. Searching through my window. I've been seeing.
Okay, and so that was her album. Were people following her album? Like I said, I would love to see like y'all comments. She looks amazing. She's sounds amazing. And like I said, I really do follow her and I love her, and she doesn't get enough credit and props. Like she said, she was in Transformers, she's in a Lexus commercial. I think she's on an Apple show. Yeah. Let me see right quick. Lou, that was the thing with the matcha clip. She has a show she's on Apple TV called Loot as well. So shout out that. I also wanted to shout out my girl Naya Belladonna, who has a wonderful album called Orgasm that I love right now, and that I really like listen to and play. And just like Michaela J, like they're in my playlist. And her rollout was really, really beautiful, Michaela J's, and I just wanted to shout her out, give some like little praise to her, you know what I mean, and give her flowers. She's amazing. She's an amazing artist, and like I said, we don't be supporting our artists enough. Now I'm going to move to the interview, but I would love to also hear about other trans artists that y'all follow. That would be great to hear, or great for me to sample or stream their music some here and personally. And I love to connect with y'all as well. I want to make music again. That's part of like why I went back to school and want to learn different levels of production. And you know, hopefully doing this podcast, hopefully doing different things can be a part of that. Like I said, I'm going to bring y'all something different every time. So anyway, this is going to be Kiki, baby, this is Kiki Palmer, featuring Michaela J, striking new poses with Michaela J. But we're going to skip it really quick first. Doot. There. Ooh. Okay.
That is, you are from the same town that Whitney Houston is from?
I surely was. North New Jersey, Brick City all day.
You have to tell me, okay, growing up, being from there, what's your favorite Whitney Houston song? What has her impact done for you?
Okay, so my favorite Whitney Houston song of all time is Run to You. Like, I would be singing that in my room all the time. I would make coin off of that song too.
Come on, performing
from the
young.
computer. Yes. Oh, yeah, it's important, you know, crucial. And I would say, like, I think growing up in Newark, New Jersey, like, I feel like there's something in the water just in Jersey, especially in Newark, because of Whitney. Whitney, we love you.
Yeah,
Yes,
the
we love
technical
you.
We miss you.
right
We
there,
miss you
my
so much.
Yes,
signal.
and that was her, yeah.
So today I've been talking all
Can y'all
about
hear
identity,
me?
especially for performers.
Yes.
I feel like for me growing up as an
Can y'all hear
entertainer,
me?
in the beginning, I feel like I was learning how to be me through my characters. And then the knowledge that I got from my characters, I used to kind of control my own narrative. It's like I realized, oh, wait a minute. I'm not the actor in my story. I'm the director.
Amen to that, yes.
So I'm curious for you in performing, how it helped you or what you learned of your process as a performer of how to identify yourself and connect to your characters.
I think the most important thing, I mean, I prep a lot. Like I'm somewhat Capricorn and Virgo, you know what it's important. And I'm like always either, I remember at one point in Pose, like I had my first and second script memorized all the way down to the T. Yeah, because I just I wanted to have freedom.
Did you have theater background?
I did.
Yeah.
I did Rent off-Broadway for a minute.
Wow.
And then I did a whole bunch of workshops after that. Almost got my first opportunity on Broadway. And then Pose came along.
Wow. What was that first opportunity going to be?
Once on This Island with Alex Newell.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, when you said that you knew all your lines on the TV show, I'm like, okay, she's not a film TV girl. She came from the real roots.
You understand these things.
Yes, because that's that real skill.
It is.
I mean, thinking of theater, Lin-Manuel.
Yep. Oh my God.
That was your first viral moment where you sang on Facebook, Satisfied. I mean, how do you feel about do you feel that's partly responsible for how you propelled in this industry?
I do. I think in the time when I was doing Rent, those were like the building blocks. You know, that was for me to like kick down the walls, fight, do the auditioning. I always think of auditions as master classes. I never think of them as just an audition. Like there are people behind those tables who will see you and will remember you and think of you or consider you the next time around. So when I went into that audition room with Lin-Manuel and I auditioned for that, I knew I was like, and I got a final call back right from that video, which I did not expect. And mind you, I have been going back to Telsey and Company. I'm sure you know about Telsey and Company.
Yes, of course. I absolutely do. I've auditioned for them times as well. Yes.
You know, we had gone back and forth, and you know the life of auditioning. You get your yeses, you get your no's, you get your finals.
Rejection.
Exactly. Yeah. But that moment, I didn't care about no rejection or nothing. I really felt like they had saw me. Like Beth Knox, shout out to you wherever you are, Beth Knox. Shout out to Telsey. Like they were like, okay, no, we need our girl to come in.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I do think that is the power of social media. Like a lot of times we can, talk about how much we hate it or love it. It's a love and hate relationship. But as a performer, it really does help us.
It do.
Especially when people put us in certain boxes. Like I know for me as an entertainer, coming from being just doing children's work and trying to make that jump to being, I'm a grown woman or I want to do comedy. I use social media for that. I did my sketches. I did my, you know what I mean? So I feel like it does give you the opportunity to kind of evolve what your story is.
You are so right. And I think in this time too, I've just realized, which I should have known for a long time, like social media is our moving, like it's the thing that's pushing us along now, aside from everything else. I mean, we have the option of, still having the studios and stuff, but like it's become such a viral big thing that it's, that's where you promote most of the time.
Yes. I mean, it's so true. And speaking of that, it's also where you can become a voice sometimes without knowing. I mean, you've become a huge voice for women. How does it feel for you? Do you lean into it? I mean, I feel like you lean into it, but does it feel like a lot of pressure?
Yes. I mean, I definitely always lean into it. I mean, I think the best part of me speaking out for all of the young girls and all of the women around the world is that I had a mother. Like I had a strong black ass mama in my life. Excuse my language.
Come on, black ass mama, period.
You feel me? You feel me? Yes. Like, so my mama, she raised me right. We know my mama raised me right. Yes. So I was like, I have to show up for the women that were like my mother in the world. And that was the only thing I knew to do after I went into my career. That was the only thing I knew to do. And I knew there were little girls out there, no matter if I was trans or not, that needed an image to be like, this is possible. This is tangible. I can do this as a young black little girl. Like that was my own trajectory. That was the only trajectory. It was no agenda. If it was an agenda, it was love. But like there was no agenda behind it. It was just me lifting people up, lifting anyone, but mostly young girls out there. Cause we don't get. And
I think it's so good what you're saying too, because there's diversity in womanhood.
Yes, it is.
Like I was just talking about earlier with my mom on this conversation, because she was like, I don't know if I was ever feminine enough or was I this and that. I'm like, it's a spectrum. You know what I mean? Like you just based off your gender doesn't mean you have to lean in more feminine or more masculine. And by the way, we always go back and forth.
We surely do.
Every day.
Every single day.
So when you think of womanhood, what does it mean to you?
I mean, I think it's just being your
Yes.
true self and living. I mean, I'm a girl who loves the softness, loves femininity. I'm a
I wish I
divine
could be
feminine
like
girl.
that all day.
Listen, girl,
It's hard.
it is hard.
Okay.
Every
You
single
either
day.
have it or
You just
Right?
don't.
you know, I'm not
Like,
But
necessarily
you
the
got it. You got it. I don't know what you talk about.
hold
girl.
up,
No,
one second. Like, it is, and like the resocialization, I call it like the resocialization that we go through as trans women. We go through that on a daily basis. We have conversations sometimes and say like the things that it took just about your self-worth, about how to show up in the world as a woman, about how to be a sister, a mother, a friend, you know what I mean, a matriarch, all of those things, and how to be demure, how to be soft, how to be vulnerable, all of those different things. We have to learn publicly as trans women. We have to learn in front of people. We have to learn with people interrogating our minds, our bodies. We have to learn in a fraction of the time that a cis woman does. And even cis women struggle with the gender binary and presentation and expressing themselves. And none of us should have to struggle with it, and men struggle with it as well. It's called the gender binary. And again, I really, in all of my roles, my community roles, my board service, the different jobs I've had, working for national organizations, I see myself as an educator. And most recently, I really have been aligning with the tradition and the movement work of being a flame keeper for the community. And so that's how I see my work. That's the overall context in which I see my work and the projects that I want to bring to y'all. I've been working on a lot of different projects as well. But because it's also going to talk about her role as Bianca from Pose and how that made her feel about motherhood and womanhood. But I just wanted to touch on the gender binary there when she mentioned that, like, we all are struggling to show up in this cookie cutter model of what a woman is. It's not just trans women. And it's detrimental. And even though the same time they want to say that we're not feminine, then you're not feminine enough. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I just wanted to touch on the gender binary. So, let us come back to here.
I'm telling you, I was working with Dolly Parton, and obviously we all know Dolly Parton. And
Dolly Parton.
The Dolly Parton never misses a beat.
Nope.
I look over to her and I say, Dolly, just I want to be like you. Like, how are you every day so gorgeous? She said, well, when I was young, I thought to myself,
Dolly needs to go to the White House.
This is what I want to be.
Tell him to,
so every day I just did it.
Save
And I'm
us.
like, Dolly, it's not that damn simple.
Save us.
She's like,
But
but I love that because there's so much fierceness behind it. Because this is who I wanted to be. I wanted to be that girl that everybody's mouth dropped when I walked through the room. I wanted to have that big hair. I wanted to have that glam on point. I wanted to have them titties.
And listen, and
like
she
that.
had them.
And she just committed to that. And that level of commitment, I mean, it's just so amazing. And obviously, you're the same.
I try my best to. I mean, I feel like we have a village around us that we don't know about. I've learned from so many women in my life. I mean, aside from my mother, you know, I love my mother to death, but there are so many women in my life who I've looked to for inspiration. So I think it comes from all of that too.
Yeah.
Like, there's one sitting in front of my face right now, everyone, if y'all are watching. She right here. I'm just saying. Okay.
I love you down. I love
silly.
you down. I mean, so let's get into the critical acclaim real quick. Golden Globe, Emmy nominations. What did that mean to you, especially as a trans woman? I mean, you were breaking barriers.
You know, I'm not gonna lie, Kiki. When that happened, I didn't know how to register it because of the sheer existence of me as a trans woman and as a Black trans woman. I did Afro Latina trans woman. Like I did not know that I was even capable of even getting awards like that. So when they happened, I didn't know how to register that. Like, my Golden Globe is still sitting in the case, girl. I mean, she's on the table now. Like, I got her on the table, but I don't know how to take that girl out, because I still am trying to figure out with myself and within myself, like, the deserving, but that's insecurities within myself, right?
And we all have them. I
Right.
was just at the Webbies not too long ago, and I turned to my best friend. I said, I think that imposter syndrome is finally gone.
Work.
And it's so funny because I think a lot of those things end up being a part of our identity till we decide to shed them. Like that, the humble or the humility to the point that it's humiliation, where we don't even know, like, can I step outside of that? But you mentioned something in here too.
And so I want to speak on humility. I'm going to speak on like getting accolades and awards. I have had those experiences, and I definitely have felt like imposter syndrome, but that's not like a feeling that I have like all the time or anything. But as a trans person, as a trans woman, I do have depression, I do have anxiety, I do have dysphoria. And those things affect us in ways that wouldn't make sense to someone who isn't trans, that wouldn't make sense to someone who doesn't understand what having a mental health issue is. And so anyway, Dr. Monique Liston, who I love, said this years ago, coming out of the pandemic, that we should focus on memories and not the accolades and not the different things. And for me, a lot of times when people recognize or hold their own sense of respect for the work that I've done, one, just that they would take the time means a lot to me, and it does mean a lot. And two, I think that in the beginning, it was something that I was like, like when I got my Pride Award, we've been volunteering. I've been volunteering at Pride for many, many years for different organizations. And so as a trans woman at that time, as a public ally, etc., like I did feel like, you know what I mean? Like I felt like I understood that selection. And other times they held whatever different meanings, depending on it. But what I reflect on is not that I did these things, it's that we all did these things together. And I remember the people that were there, and I remember what it took to get to each of those milestones, and so I did just want to touch on that, the humility thing, which is kind of also going back to the words imposter syndrome. I don't really feel like I have imposter syndrome. Like I said, I feel like my issues is more like me, my mental health, me being a trans woman. I don't think that it's necessarily like I have imposter syndrome in my work or in showing up in spaces. And I also don't, and am very naturally humble. And it's not about doing something purposefully humble. It's about sometimes I don't need all that. Sometimes you don't need all that. You know what I mean? Sometimes also, it's about like I'm trying to get my thoughts together. it's not always about doing something like purposefully. That's what I was gonna say. It's not like always getting something being purposefully humble about something or anything. It's about what you don't like to receive, you know? Like, just trying to move in a way that is how you want to be treated, you know? And teaching people how to treat you. And all of those things are also a part of womanhood and becoming a woman and living as a woman as well. And so, okay, that's what I wanted to say about like that. I think imposter syndrome is definitely something that you can feel in a space where it's a predominantly white space, especially as a person of color or a Black person. Like I definitely feel that. I definitely feel like you can feel that as well as a trans person in front of other people. But I don't think that I really feel imposter syndrome unless it's like a white thing. Honestly, you know. And opportunities, the big ones and the small ones, you know what I mean? Like it all comes together. And I love the way that's the one thing that like keeps me going kind of is like, I love the way that things be coming together. Like I don't even be knowing how they're going to come together. So anyway, okay.
That speaks to identity. Afro-Latina.
Yes.
You know, I mean, there's so many layers upon layers of who we are and what we represent. So how did you feel about it in those terms?
You know, I think when it comes to intersectionalities, whether it's culture or race, you know, one, you always have to teeter the line, but more importantly, you have to speak out. And I think the most important thing for me was to speak out about the cultures that I'm a part of. I didn't want to just subject myself to just one specific conversation because I'm a well-rounded girl. We're well-rounded girls, and we have to speak to all of those things. So I thought that was the way. I think that was the way it was easy for me, and it was lucrative for me. It wasn't just something that was just like, oh, I have to do this. It was just I knew. Not that I have to do this. I didn't think to do it because it was something to do. I knew it was innately something that I had to speak about, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, it's something that you represent, that
exactly.
you feel that is an integral part of your identity. And that's why when I was hearing you say it, I was like, oh, we got to talk about that, because that's something I think people are speaking more and more about today.
Yes.
Especially with the actor, the Afro-Latino male actor that was nominated. That I didn't even know he was Afro-Latino.
Wait, who?
Oh, Domingo.
Oh, Coleman Domingo?
Coleman Domingo. Yeah, I didn't even know.
So just to let you know, I've known Coleman Domingo for a long time and did not know Coleman Domingo was Hispanic.
Okay.
See, that's crazy. Okay, Coleman,
I love you, the original Sammy Sosa.
Respectfully.
Let me stop. Let me get back to what we talked about. So characters, like I was saying, as a performer, there's always this interest.
Coleman Domingo also has a great show out on Netflix called The Madness. Great show. He's also a gay man and a celebrated actor. He's going to be hosting the Met Gala this year. Okay. I just wanted to shout out Coleman Domingo as like a queer icon. I figured that y'all should follow more as well.
Thing where there's part of us that's similar to our characters, and then there's this part of us that's not. Because obviously it's not us, but we have to pick and choose, and then we learn stuff from our character that we maybe want to take with us.
True.
What did you learn from playing Bianca?
I will say, and I was just talking about this on TikTok too.
Ooh.
I would say, you know, I realized that I was so different from her simply because she had such a hard life. She didn't have parents. She didn't have a really sturdy background. She didn't have pillars behind her.
Yeah.
But she managed to like persevere. And those are the things that I take away. I was blessed with a loving mother. I was blessed with a loving father, and then 2 loving step-parents.
This reminds me of Beyonce talking about the difference between her and her character in Dreamgirls. I didn't grow up like her.
You know what? I'll take that. I will take that because I did not. Everybody's like, yes, I do. And that was a sickening interview, by the way, because it was so
she was
classy.
Like, no, she's
it was very demure.
Very demure, very mindful. And that's what you're giving. I'm here for this.
She's inspiration.
Yes.
She taught me a lot. I keep her on my shoulder a lot, but she taught me a lot how to persevere through the hard times, how to triumph when you have nothing at all, and also how to be a mother. Actually, like I looked at her on the television screen. I was like, oh wow. When you're in the character, you're not registering what you're putting on the screen. You just there to do the work, make sure you give what you need to give,
and
be
you get
on the
lost
mark.
in it.
I do.
We do. You get lost in it.
Because when I saw you in Nope, girl, I knew you got lost up in that, and I lived. I was like, Kiki better act your ass off.
When you're talking about having her on your shoulder and just thinking back on her, it makes me think about this movie where I did called Alice. And obviously I've never been a slave before. That's Black American history. But in this movie, this character Alice, she had been a slave. And I remember leaving from that movie and just crying in my room because obviously I don't know what that experience is like. I was born free. You know what I mean? Like my parents, and I'm an entertainer, and there's so much. I don't know. I just remember thinking to myself, like, wow, I have to carry that with me, and I have to have the joy that she couldn't have.
It's the Motion Array Epic Holiday Sale. Get 10% off.
My other little shout out, y'all gonna stop coming for Carisha and Kiki talking about they're not good interviewers. Y'all are gonna stop that. I don't like that. Stop that. They are good interviewers. I would love to see some of y'all comments. Okay. Yeah.
Everything planned. Templates, music.
That's the thing. It's the weight that I'm sure you can relate to this, like leaving those productions, those heavy productions. You're right. You do carry the weight of those characters on you. And it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's emotional. You have to really strip that character away from you. And as you said, like I looked at Blanca's life and I realized how traumatizing her life was compared to mine. And I was just like, oh girl, you are a strong ass woman. I don't know.
Yeah.
And by
the way, I knew it was Blanca, but the way that they wrote it, it looked like I. So I just kept
forgot
saying,
just that quick too.
Girl, I messed up. Anyway, y'all, don't think I don't know because I did watch the show. So don't fuck with me.
Yeah, okay.
When y'all listen to this, okay?
Please don't, because I'll come for y'all. Okay.
Period. Thank you.
Baby, this is Kiki Palmer, yeah.
Braids, faux locks, twists, and knots. Your girl has dabbled with all of them, okay? And the freedom is. Now, what made you want to be an actor? Did you always want to act, or did you just want to sing at first? Kind of what was your introduction? Which art style were you first introduced to?
Music. Music is and will always be, and I think now more than anything, is and will always be my first passion. Acting came out of musical theater, believe it or not. I was doing Rent. And I saw Rent as a stepping stone. Like I had just left college. I wasn't even in my first year. Like I was in my first semester. And I went to Berklee College of Music. I was majoring in song. I had to drop that up in there.
Drop that bomb on there.
I had to drop that up. But I would say it was when I left, I felt like there was an incompletion. And the only thing I knew to do was to try to like reach some kind of height in my career as a musician, and the only stepping stone I knew was musical theater. I had been trained in it when I was a young kid. Acting wasn't a thought in my mind. Like straight acting was not a thought in my mind.
Yep.
I only wanted to become an artist. So when acting came, I was kind of like thrown off a little bit. I mean, I love acting so much. It's one of my favorite things to do, and it's one of my top passions. But it threw me for a loop when that kind of like took more reign over my singing. It made me feel like, oh my God, well, maybe I'm just not cut out to be a singer. Then maybe I should just, live in this passion of acting and really give people what they want, but not anymore.
I know exactly what you mean because that was my storyline.
Really?
Oh my gosh. I started singing in a church, wanted to pursue music, did like American Juniors, got my golden ticket to California. When I finally moved to California, I got an agent. We started acting because that was, again, the only, I ain't heard about a kid being a professional singer since Michael Jackson. Child.
Thank you.
So we was like, whatever we got to do to get me through the door.
We're going to do it, yeah.
And then the acting went off. And then when I started doing music, it just became so difficult. And I don't understand why. And I'm sure you feel the same way that music is just such an interesting thing.
It is.
It doesn't have the same kind of system as acting. And the way that you have, like, for instance, you could do a million movies. Every movie doesn't have to be number one in the theaters for you to be seen as an actor.
It's true.
With music, there's always these random external validations of being on some billboard or being on this stream that can make you as a performer feel like, oh, I'm not doing enough. How did you feel like when you finally found your way back to music and putting out your music? Like, what was the shift for you that said, okay, I don't have to feel like weird. I don't have to feel like just because my acting is doing this, I can't pursue something else.
I think this year, I mean, I had, I've been working on music for about 6 years with some really great people too. They're still in my life. One of them I consider my uncle, and another one is actually I found out is my cousin through marriage. So I was just
Now
like, this is
that's
great.
crazy.
I know this world is small, very small. I mean, she's huge, but she's small.
You are too funny.
I'm key. So you see, I'm telling you, this is okay. So I feel like it changed for me in this year. I'm a spiritual girl.
Period. Me too.
I believe that, there is a power much greater than us, and we have to honor that.
That's right.
And in my 33rd year, I thought about somebody who was on this earth who left us, and that was Jesus Christ. And I was just like, okay, well, his 33rd year, though we lost him in the most
33rd. Yes. Go ahead. Sorry.
And his 33rd year, it was the most prolific year for him, but it was the most tragic year for him because we lost him. But he changed so much. And I was like, wow, he changed the lives of so many people. And he didn't even cause a ruckus through physical harm or anything. It was just his words. What happens if my music can do that? And I feel like my 33rd year, I'm feeling like I need to do something. I don't know if it's the creator telling me. I don't know if it's just out of the air. I don't know if it's just me, but this is right. And it's now, and it needs to happen. And I've been working on this long enough. And I feel like the people need to hear my story as an artist, need to hear what I've been through, what I want to tell the young girls out there, what they don't need to deal with, what I felt when I was in the beginning of my life imposed and how it's come to now.
Yeah.
And I feel like this was the right time. And I'm in a very mature space where I can let people know that and feel comfortable and confident knowing like what my music is going to tell. And also getting out in there and perform. Because Kiki, I want to perform with you. I want to perform with Victoria
You're
Monet.
such an amazing performer. So
Thank you.
yes, we need to see that with this music. And then also you dropped the MJ and we're just going by Michaela J.
Yeah.
Was that totally influenced by you going more into this musical
Yes, it
direction?
was.
I remember
so tell me a little bit about
she
that, how you
came out
So
in the opener
when
to
I
the Soul
came
Train
into the
Awards
acting
2
world,
years
I was like,
ago, and
let
they
me
was like
establish myself
mad.
as
They was
I'm
mad.
gonna be MJ Rodriguez.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'll go by my
She
nickname,
like did a
and I'll
ballroom
be
sketch, I
mysterious,
think,
and I'll
but,
let
like,
people know, and then and I was young, I was 25 at the time. So I was like, optimistic, just trying to create things that would be creative.
Yes.
Then I was like, no, I need to be a little bit more authentic. I need to be, people need to see who I am, see who's behind the MJ, and that's why I let the world know that through my artistry. I was like, well, music is a very, very personal space. People want to know so much about you. Why not let them know what M and J stand for? So Michaela J.
I know everybody's not a performer, but I just love how artistry allows us to continuously change and evolve our identities.
Yes.
Give us permission to be able to explore these different
Yes.
spaces. You said something else about, who you were in the beginning of Pose and when you were entering the industry from that direction till now. What was the plot then and what's the plot now?
The plot has always been to leave a legacy. And this is, y'all, this is not, I'm not a cocky girl at all.
But please,
just remember, I want my name to be etched in the mouths of people all around the world because of the work I've done with uplifting them. That's what I want. When I'm gone, whenever I'm gone, we never know when we're going to leave. But when I do, I want people to always remember me for the work that I've done to uplift them and make them happy. And I think I'm accomplishing some of that now. There's still more work to go because we got work. We young as hell. We got work to do.
That's so true.
But that's what I want. And I hope more than anything, it lasts with this music because that's the main thing I've always wanted.
I'm so happy for you and every.
And again, her album is really amazing. I want to make music. I've always wanted to do that. Like I said, I've been working on that and some other creative projects as well that I can't wait to get to the point to release to everyone, and hopefully be supported by everyone when I release them. And it's hard to find your place, and I think especially as like queer people, when we age out of like high school and different programs and college, like there are no creative outlets. That's why I said I really want my trans folks, I really want my queer folks to look into going to LA Film School, looking at going back to school, period. Like, we deserve to be at arts institutions. We deserve to be surrounded with creative people and like-minded people, and we deserve to be able to express ourselves and not just be pigeonholed. You know what I mean? Early in my advocacy, I didn't want to just be pigeonholed into prevention work. And I think that I've done a good job of being able to break outside of that, but I definitely acknowledged it and respected it and had some amazing experiences. Essence Fest, knowing Hydia Broadbent, different opportunities like that, like rest in peace, Hydia Broadbent. But you know what I mean? Like, those different experiences definitely shaped me and you know what I mean, helped me to be able to do other things, and to be able to lead my work and do my work in a way that feels right to me. And like I said, I want to create more, and that is the theme of this first half of the show, and then we'll get into in a second when I cover the book Flamboyant and Flamboyant Resistance, and what I mean by that. And so I'll just say it right now, but what I mean by that is we resist with art, we resist with fashion, we resist with making noise, we resist with protesting, we resist with writing, we resist with documenting and archiving, we resist with flame keeping and telling our stories, we resist with educating each other. Okay. I actually never saw this last part of it.
Everything that you have going on, you are absolutely amazing. I am, honey, Michaela J. You're eating it up.
Thank you. I'm trying to. You know, I'm hungry.
I don't want to let you go just yet because, you know, every time on the show, I play a game with my guests. And this one is called This One Has Some Sweetness to It.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. So basically, it's a game where I ask you questions about your love life.
Okay.
And you open up about it to me and the fans.
Let's do it. I'm down. Let's do it.
And this is hard for Capricorns because you don't like tell nobody.
We don't. Thank you for making, you know me. It's hard, but you know, it's with you. So I trust.
Yes, I'm going to take care of you. Okay. Are you seeing anybody right now?
I'm not seeing anyone. I'm just kidding. No, I am. I'm seeing someone. We're in a very long-term relationship, almost 5 years.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Girl, you been keeping this on the lowest of keys.
Yeah, you know, got to keep it on the, you know, low key.
That's how you keep your stuff right and tight, though.
But don't worry, we're going to do an arpeggiation. We're going to make sure there's some progression so the key can get higher, you know?
Yes. Okay. What kind of first date do you prefer? Coffee shop? Dinner?
Uh-huh.
Options. Coffee shop, question mark. Dinner, question mark.
Coffee, dinner. Coffee, dinner offie.
So we're looking for all day kick it.
Kick it with me all day. I need to know who you are, sir.
I do love a kick it all day.
Yeah.
I love when it's like, oh, damn, you look over like, damn, we've been together since 8 a.m.
Yeah, and you still talking to me.
Yeah.
Why would you accuse self? You want to go to the movies?
Yes, let's keep going. Okay, where is the worst date you've ever been on?
The worst date that I have ever been on was before I had any morals.
Imagine a school that prepares you for life beyond the classroom. At Destinations Career Academy.
And this guy said to me, because, okay, just long story short, Scott told, you know, I told him in the chat that, you know, I was trans, and I said, did you look at my profile? And he's like, yeah. You know, I go and see him and we set up a great date. It was a fantastic date. It was at Starbucks.
I love coffee. So you do, this is a coffee girl.
Yes. And he said to me, why didn't you tell me? So, you know, I thought what I said was, well, the reason why, you know, I didn't tell you because it was on my page and, you know, I thought you looked at it. But what came out of my mouth was, well, why didn't you tell me you was going to look like this when you showed up at this date? Like, I didn't expect to come from where I was at to come and look at you like this. How dare you?
Oh,
and,
my God.
You know, I could have gotten, you know, knocked out, but I didn't. He just looked at me and left.
I went on a date like that where a dude went from Chris Brown to Jay-Z with just the removal of glasses. I said, now wait a fucking minute.
Yep. And you like,
it can be that quick.
Very quick.
Like what?
Very, very, very transformative.
It's called being catfish.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. What
is
why
they be trying to call us Transformers? Y'all
this is good.
Transformers.
This is good. Oh,
okay, so I actually did see that part.
Flag.
I thought I didn't, but I did see that
part.
It's
too physical, too quick. And I always, look, I'm not trying to, like you said, I'm not trying to be cocky, but these lips,
yeah, you don't touch those.
People. They do, people see these lips and they want to immediately, mwah, mwah.
There's some nice lips.
I've been on dates and they're literally trying to suck my lips off, and I'm like,
you like, hold on,
this is dangerous.
And your breath might stink. So it's like, yeah, I feel you.
Seriously,
that is definitely a red flag. I would say it's, if your breath stink, I don't know if I'm, that's a big red flag.
Especially so early on.
Yeah.
Like breath stink in the morning is like
I'm not mad at you. We've been getting, but when you come in, you gotta brush your teeth, put some Listerine up in there, floss, the tongue.
Literally. Mm-hmm. Okay, last one. What is the most attractive quality for you in a person?
Tenderness and attentiveness. That is very attractive.
Yes, and that smile gave me life.
Yeah,
you was thinking about somebody.
I was. He right there behind me or whatever. He here, y'all, in the cut.
I love he's definitely here. My man's here, right there to the right.
My man. Thank you. Thank you to my man.
Well, thank you to you.
No, thank you,
girl. We gotta really kick it.
That's
coffee,
what I'm
saying.
And so. Yes. And so I love her so much. And so we are going to wrap up the part about her. But I love her.
Sorry I couldn't get my gift to you. I crashed right through. Memories of you stay printed in my mind. And oh, what fun. I enjoy the ride. Believe in me. Presents that I wanted to give when we grew apart. Body, heart, lies. I knew I'd pay the price. A holiday in hell is brought from heaven. Slavers, ringing, people singing underneath the mistletoe. You were the one that let me go. Hoping, dreaming, wishing, and thinking Santa's gift would be you to me. Make my Christmas wish complete. Santa's gift would be you to me. Make my Christmas wish complete. Ribbons and bows are tied, wrapped up for you tonight. 'Cause I don't wanna be alone for Christmas. You told me if I was good, you'd give me what I wanted. A snow white cover coated fantasy that I wouldn't believe in me. Presents that I wanted to give when we grew apart. Body, heart, lies. I knew I'd pay the price. A holiday in hell is brought from heaven. Underneath the mistletoe, you were the one that let me go. Hoping, dreaming, wishing, thinking Santa's gift would be to me. My Christmas wish complete. Santa's gift would be to me. Make my Christmas wish complete. Santa's gift would be to me. Make my Christmas wish complete.
Yes. And so that was Michaela J. Yes. That was Michaela J. I love her. And again, I would love to hear what trans artists y'all are following. I would love to hear reactions to Michaela J's album. And hopefully you all stream it and support her. Now, we're going to see George M. Johnson talking about being an author. And then I'm going to just talk and read and share a little bit from his book, Flamboyance.
Welcome back. It is always a pleasure catching up with our next guest. George M. Johnson is the New York Times best-selling author of All Boys Aren't Blue, which shares the reality of life growing up in this country as a Black queer person. 1 year after it was published in 2020, it became the second most banned book in the country, putting George among the most banned Black authors. But they refuse to be silenced, fighting back every step of the way, including right now with the paperback release of All Boys Aren't Blue. Tam Fam, back for a third time. Please welcome author and activist George M. Johnson! Oh my God! Oh, beautiful, of course. Oh my, of course you never disappoint, how gorgeous you are. First of all, Time 100 Next List.
Yes.
Bravo, look at you there.
Yes.
You were featured in Harper's Bazaar Icon issue.
Yes.
Look at you there.
Yes.
And you were, nominated for an Emmy last year for the audio recording of your book.
Yes.
I love it. First of all, everything you say, I hang on to every word. But I know this personally when you said, I don't take any moment for granted.
No.
You don't take a single moment of this for granted. At best case scenario, what did you think was going to happen here?
You know, the book came out. I was like, okay, even if just one person gets the message, then I'm okay with that. Yeah. And I even wrote that in the book. And that's something that I've always stuck true to. Like, if it just reaches one person, then I did my job. To watch it now be in 6 different languages and reach hundreds of thousands of people in a myriad of ways is something that is beyond my wildest dreams.
As I said, you were part of our show when we talked about books that were being banned across the country. Yeah. Even I could not have imagined September 22, the assault that was coming our way, right? And what I mean is our way, because whenever a book is banned, it damages everyone. Yeah. Everyone, because the book that you need to read might be next on that list.
Absolutely.
And so there you were, this ongoing federal lawsuit against a school district in Florida that banned your book. Yeah. This is the outfit you wore to court last month.
Yes. Yes.
Wait, I'm gonna be the neutral reporter here. So what were you messaging here?
You know, when we first filed the lawsuit, I made a joke on Twitter and I was like, all right, I'm gonna make sure I put my court bob on, because I don't know if y'all have noticed, but like when Cardi B would go to court, it was always the bob, the bad suit. When Meg Thee Stallion went to court, it was the bob and the bad suit. So I didn't put the bob on, but I was like, I could still put it on, you know? And so I was like, if I'm gonna come to Florida, I want to make my presence shown. And I also wanted to stand out in the courtroom so that the people who were on the other side knew that I was there and knew that they weren't gonna ignore me and in the ways that they try to ignore me in the real world. So I wanted to be the brightest in the room and take up space.
I love it because it also tells me the serious nature of this all, and we know the impact of it all. You have still managed to smile in this and have fun with this because you are so protected from there and from a woman in this room, your mother, Kay.
Yes.
She was in the audience talking about how your message needed to be heard. And there she was defending you in front of everyone. You had a standing ovation there. And what I love about that is so often, which it is true, many LGBTQ plus queer kids are abandoned by their families, but so many others are not.
Yes.
Are not. And that's not to diminish the struggle at home, but I love to see the other side of it, that everyone is not abandoned.
Yes.
And there are so many like you who have people like your mom rooting in the building.
Yes. Yes.
I love that. And Kay, why were you so confident that George's message needed to be heard?
Because you don't stifle your children. Your children are who they are. God gave them to us. we mold them, we show them which way to go. And when I saw who George was becoming, well, Matt, I call him Matt. When I saw who Matt was becoming and I saw what Matt was talking about, he was always very outspoken. And so I knew always, I got to fight with this one because he's going to say something and somebody's going to say something back and it's going to be the wrong thing. I've even lost friends over things they may have said about LGBTQ, and I don't need you because you're not going to discredit my child.
Your mother's getting a standing ovation.
She deserves it.
Listen, I know who I'm going to call when somebody says something about me in the comment section. Your latest book, Flamboyance, The Queer Harlem Renaissance, I Wish I'd Known.
Yes.
That is so beautiful.
Yes. It hasn't come out yet.
It is.
So
This is, by the way, this is
debuting.
an exclusive. This is an exclusive look at the front cover. Why was this important for you to say this is next? This is next up.
Yeah, I'm very big on the idea of going back in the past and telling the stories that were either incorrectly told or where our ancestors' stories weren't told completely at all. And so when I thought about what All Boys Aren't Blue had done, I feel like that's the present and it helps the future. But it's like sometimes we need to go back to the past to also retell those stories too, because they give us a roadmap and they give us a blueprint of where we are today and how we got here today. And the culture of the Harlem Renaissance, it's like, I wanted people to understand you don't have Blackness without queerness. You don't have queerness without Blackness. They all go hand in hand together. And so in creating this book, I wanted to create my own Harlem Renaissance. It's my version of the new Negro. So I wrote poetry for it. It's essays. It's fully illustrated. So it's not just about the Harlem Renaissance. It is giving the future generation the Harlem Renaissance.
Oh, I got goosebumps. I'm telling you. Thank you so much. It's been an honor to know you.
Thanks, y'all.
estimated at 3 million than there are. In fact, there are more kids who have been exposed to gun violence, estimated at 3 million, than there are transgender Americans of all ages in total. Targeting trans people isn't new. It is an age-old tradition, which Nazi Germany did with brutally violent ends in the 1930s. While the Supreme Court refuses to do anything about weapons of war in schools, today they seemed inclined to uphold Tennessee's ban on gender-affirming care for minors. While the decision is not expected for months, a majority of the justices parroted a string of debunked talking points, all under the guise of protecting the kids, just not every kid.
All right, folks, it is time for our absolute biggest deal of the year on Daily Wire Plus. That is 50% off. This is a deal.
Okay, so another technical difficulty. So I'm gonna just go ahead and reread this. This is Secret Not Secret by George M. Johnson. Dear reader of this letter, whoever you are, I've got a secret that nobody knows, accepting me, them, and some other folk to the world. I live in a box for fame. In the dark and shadows, I am the flame. Maybe I'll tell my secret aloud. Or maybe the secret will tell on me, child. Known or unknown, we are all grown, doing grown people things, you know? Maybe I'll tell my secret aloud, or maybe the secret will tell on me, child. Known or unknown, we are all grown, doing grown people things, you know what I'm saying? Will they accept me if my secret is found, or will they bury my truth with me in the ground? Only time will tell, or will I? The secret is in a public lies. Whoever you are, dear reader of this letter, can you keep my secret? Here we go again. Like to use. Okay. 1 second. Langston Hughes. Born 1901, Joplin, Missouri. Passed 1967 in New York City. Lived in New York City. This is also my first time realizing that he was a Midwesterner in Missouri and in Ohio. As I get into this essay, I'm going to read this essay quick and share just with you. I have a deep personal connection to Langston Hughes. I remember having 2 Langston Hughes books growing up. And I love Langston. And with Langston Hughes, and in particular Whitney Houston, these is how we have these deep personal connections with these queer icons who were really queer icons. Even though we didn't know that, like, how would I know as a little kid to connect with Langston Hughes and to connect with Whitney? You know what I mean? Like, and this is my first time ever knowing that he was a Midwesterner as well. And so, anyway, this is George M. Johnson. I love writing. I think I always knew that I would be a writer, or at minimum, one day would have a story to tell. Writing is one of those things that can come in many different forms. Poems, music, essays, letters. Each has a special ability to convey my feelings and opinions. When I think about Langston Hughes, a person who wrote in many different forms and styles, I think about what inspired me to uphold his legacy with this book. A book that honors him and other Black queer creators from one of the most pivotal times in history. Even with the minimal information I got at school during Black History Month, certain figures have always stayed in my memory bank. Langston was one of those figures because I always felt connected to his poetry. It felt poignant but secretive at the same time. There was a softness and vulnerability to his writing, which always made me wonder if there was more to his story. Which always made me wonder if there was more to his story, more to the lens through which he saw the world. Maybe in looking at him, I wondered if he and I saw the world through the same set of lenses, Black and queer. But before we could get into it, I think it's important to address some scrutiny around Langston's identity. There's been much debate about his sexuality. Most scholars believe that he was in fact queer. Although no partner, man or woman, has ever been linked to him, his writing often alluded to his homosexuality and some of his experiences with it. Many of his friends, who were also prominent folks at the time, were indeed queer. Langston's life speaks evidently to the history of Black queerness. I know what it feels like to be a closeted queer person or non-public about my sexuality and identity. Being closeted often meant sacrificing my true happiness in order to survive and stay safe. Until I was about 27 years old, I didn't publicly identify as gay. I finally did so in an article I wrote. James Mercer Langston Hughes was born in 1901 to James Hughes and Catherine Mercer Langston, hence his name. After separating from his mother, his father moved to Mexico, stating that he was tired of the racism he faced in America. That's this activist background. Langston's mother would often leave him for long periods in order to work, so he was primarily raised by his grandmother. It's interesting how relatable this piece of his story is for me and many others. Although I had parents at home, my parents worked a lot, and so my grandmother, whom I called Nanny, was my main caregiver for many years. And just like Nanny, I love how it is said that Langston's grandmother instilled in him the power of oral traditions, the passing down of history, art, culture, and storytelling from generation to generation through vocal communication. She also taught him how important it is to help your community. Take pride in being Black and always support those who have less than you. In reading about Langston's life, I felt like a damn mirror was being held up to my face in my own experiences. I was taught the same values he was taught. A rift developed between Langston and his father after he left the United States. However, Langston found his love of writing during this time. He began writing poetry in junior high school and high school, and it is said that he attended Central High School and that his teacher pushed him to be a writer. He wrote for his high school paper and even began writing plays and poetry. When it came time for Langston to go to college, he met he was met with an ultimatum. James Hughes was a lawyer and believed that Langston could go to school for engineering. Despite his gifts as a writer, he agreed to pay for college only if Langston studied engineering. He agreed to study engineering, but only if he could go to Columbia University. Langston started his engineering studies at Columbia in 1921, but he continued writing under a pen name. The following year, he left school due to his immense racism he was receiving from classmates. He's also not allowed to live on campus. After he left Columbia, he found solace in the nearby neighborhood of Harlem, where he felt at home with his blackness and culture. And this was in the 1930s. Okay, the 1920s and the 1930s would have been when he was of age to go to college at Columbia. He was not allowed to live on campus. We are headed into a Jim Crow apartheid era with this administration. And again, as we go into our political conversation, my real goal is to give some of that political education and some of this history. I really, really do love history. Again, I really have a deep personal connection with Langston Hughes. And I really do love history and watch a lot of history documentaries and sources and different things all throughout my life. And it's very important. Okay, this part is going to be super cute in an important way. Although the Harlem Renaissance is seen as one of the queerest periods in Black history, especially in the United States, it doesn't mean that said queerness was accepted. I think grudging tolerance better describes what queer people experienced during that time. I can only imagine that Langston, who had become a leader in the Harlem Renaissance, never felt the space or security to be publicly queer. There were reasons, both internal and external, informing his decision to obscure his sexuality. Despite this, he carved a pathway for Black thought, ideas, and creativity. Langston was a college professor, a mentor and activist, a best-selling poetry writer, a playwright, and cultural thought leader. One of my favorite poems by him is Let America Be America Again. It is an amazing dual point of view poem about the founding ideology of America versus the reality of the American experience for several groups of people. It is especially interesting poem for our era because it is contrasting ideas to former President Trump's campaign slogan, Make America Great Again. The question is, great for whom? You see, America has not been great for neither Black folks nor queer folks, and has not always been great for immigrants, especially non-white ones, and has fooled impoverished whites into thinking people of other races or ethnic origins are their enemies. So when I hear the slogan, Make America Great Again, I have to ask, what period of American history is it reinforcing? The period where land was taken from indigenous people, the periods of slavery and Jim Crow, our time of extreme anti-LGBTQIA bias and hatred. And here we have Langston Hughes criticizing these very notions way back in 1936 for Esquire magazine, where the poem was published during the Great Depression. But it was who he was, poignant and honest. And I could sit here and probably write a whole book analyzing his work, but this book is about introducing him to you with the hope that you will go out and learn more about him and others of his time. I hope he will inspire you to write more, speak more, do more. And again, that's a tie-in. That's why I'm reading this. That's why I'm wanting to show you the book. And show you George M. Johnson's work, is because that is how we resist. Resistance is not always about guns and violence and the police and brutality and all of those different things, or protesting even. It's also about art. It's about creating. It's about documenting, archiving things for the community so that there's a future, so that our stories are told. And again, I've just been really ruminating and resonating with being a flamekeeper, and that being my role, and in being the way that I move in my service. And in all of my roles, I see myself as an educator, whether that's organizing, whether that's board service, whether that's policy development, whether that's grant writing. I see myself as an educator. Throughout history, people have fought against the truth, trying to hide it or erase it from history. Some people have tried to deny or rewrite history, the history of slavery in the United States. Others are Holocaust deniers, whom from the moment it happened to this very day have tried to lie about what the Nazis did. These lies are self-serving and hurt us all. The rewriting of our history denies our humanity. It severs our links to the past and allows people in power to deny how these events play a role in every system of oppression we face today. It's why we must remain vigilant in telling the truth, and even more so correcting the lies of the past in an effort to change our futures. My favorite piece of Langston that Langston ever wrote is an essay called Spectacles in Color in his first autobiography, The Big C. I was an adult when I first read the essay. It discussed a ball he attended in the 1920s where the men dressed as women and the women dressed as men. A ballroom ball in the 1920s. He noted how people paid money to come and watch the spectacle, that it was more celebrated as a part of culture than shunned. This blew my mind. I was introduced to ballroom culture around 2006 with a college friend. We would go watch the houses, family style groups with mothers, fathers, and kids. The houses are typically named after iconic fashion houses like Gucci or Balenciaga, but it wasn't until 2014 that I became more involved in ballroom, helping out, helping to put on balls, befriending many in the community, and pitching in with their advocacy efforts. And now I'm a member of the House of Comme des Garçons. I watched the documentary Paris is Burning, which covers many in the house leaders in the late 1980s and early 90s. In 2018, the award-winning show Pose debuted, giving us a deeper look into the world of ballroom in the New York City scene during that same time period. A few years later, the show Legendary aired, which the current ballroom competitive competitions look like, and the award-winning documentary Kiki highlighted a growing part of the ballroom scene in the 2000s until today. So when I learned that ballroom dated back to the 1800s, I was inspired to carry the baton to tell leaders, stop. My dog's barking. Stop. Stop. Shh. Come here. Come here. Stop. Stop. So when I learned that ballroom dated back to the late 1800s, I was inspired to carry the baton to tell readers more about our legacy and culture. There's something beautiful about Langston Hughes capturing a first-hand experience of Black queerness and making sure it was recorded. Specifically because of him, we know more about our truth, and that's the saddest part about our history, whether it be Black history, queer history, or Black queer history. Approximately 10 million Black people were enslaved in this country, yet we have fewer than 6,000 recorded accounts of their lives. I often wonder how many of those accounts were from a Black queer perspective. We only know the stories we know. We know some stories only because people like Langston spoke up about the truth in the face of criticism. This is the same work that Black storytellers are doing today. This is why our books continue to be banned. Truth telling has never been safe for us, but this has always been necessary. When I wrote my debut memoir, All Boys Aren't Blue, I had the ability to write my truth with the full color and texture that many of my ancestors and heroes were denied. I documented my Blackness and my queerness with their intersection in my own words. I think of flamboyance as an expansion not only of Langston's essay Spectacles in Color, but also of his life's work. And one day someone else's work will be an expansion of mine. To me, this is spiritual and ancestral work, living through one another's time. This is how oral and written traditions operate. They've been one of our greatest tools for liberation. Whether I need affirmation, I return to dreams, one of Langston's most quoted poems. It speaks to so perfectly about life and the imaginative. For me, whenever I need affirmation, I return to dreams, one of Langston's most quoted poems. It speaks so perfectly about life and the imaginative. For me, imagination is where Black freedom resides. In the space for our imagination, we get to create worlds for ourselves outside of our oppression. We get to play outside of our dreams before manifesting them in the real world. Dreams keep us alive. Langston was a true dreamer. It's reflected all throughout his work. His poems and essays on love and queerness showcase what the world could be without societal constraints. His criticisms of the time he lived in were a challenge to the oppressor, and his contributions to the arts inspire us to use our words, create our own dreams, and to build an America in which we can all live freely. It's the last picture on my show. Okay, now we can get into our political conversation. So let me come back over here to Joy and get us caught up. I just want to go back to shoot. Okay, sorry, y'all. I had stepped away anyway. So, here we go. Okay.
Exposed to gun violence, estimated at 3 million than there are transgender Americans of all ages in total. Targeting trans people isn't new.
An estimated 3 million children in the U.S. are exposed to shootings per year, while trans people only make up 1% of the population, 1.6 million trans people. 1 second. Oh, I had an article for this. For what I want to go to next. 1 second. 1 second. They're only going to let me read, I think, the beginning. Okay, no. Okay. This is an article on Truth Out. Republicans spent nearly 215 million on TV ads attacking trans rights this election. In our, I showed y'all the little agenda for the political conversation already, but I'll go back to it in a second. Republicans spent nearly 215 million on network TV ads vilifying transgender people this election cycle. According to data released by Ad Impact and cited by the Washington Post. This figure excludes spending on cable or streaming ads, meaning the total amount Republicans have spent on anti-trans ads is even likely higher. Attacking our community without a doubt. Attacking our community was without a doubt their number one priority. There are an estimated 1.6 million transgender people over the age of 13 in the U.S. While trans people only represent around 1% of the U.S. population, this community has been increasingly targeted by the right in recent years. That's $134 per trans person in anti-trans ad spending. To say that this assault on our community has been disproportionate is an understatement. Alejandra Caraballo, clinical instructor at Harvard Law. Although voters say transgender issues are among the least important factors driving them to the polls, trans activists argue that Republicans are relying on anti-trans rhetoric to rally their base. In fact, according to transgender journalist Aaron Reed, Donald Trump has spent more money on anti-trans ads than he has on ads concerning housing, immigration, and the economy combined. It's one of the biggest type of ad run by far-right Republicans. This is their closing message. One of the top ads pushed by the Trump campaign in October attacked Kamala Harris for supporting taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners, regarding her previous statements concerning access to gender-affirming care for incarcerated or detained people. I think that this is a classic fear campaign. This anti-trans ad campaign is a part of a broader strategy reflected in Trump's political platform, Agenda 47, which is filled with anti-trans policies that include a ban on trans people's participation in women's sports, a prohibition on federal or state funding for gender-affirming care and other related measures. Anti-trans politicians keep recycling baseless rhetoric against the trans community, spending over $215 million. In addition to the anti-trans rhetoric promoted by the Trump campaign, groups like Senate Leadership Fund and Republican Super PAC have spent large sums of anti-trans ads with the aim of securing GOP victories in Senate races in Ohio, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, and in Georgia. However, trans activists argued that the anti-trans rhetoric used in this election could backfire just as it did in 2022 midterms. Okay. That was before the election, obviously, that article. But we're seeing some big, huge cases. They passed a ban for trans people to use the bathroom in Texas. They are upholding a gender affirming care for youth ban. So we're going to start with that. Out of Tennessee in the Supreme Court, the federal Supreme Court, which is a predominantly conservative Supreme Court, a right-leaning Supreme Court. And so, actually, I just want to show you all this. I was going to play it. I played it before, but I'm not going to play it. I'm going to play this one with this guy Chase down here. However, this is kind of like C-SPAN. You maybe have heard of C-SPAN, but maybe have never watched it. C-SPAN, when they have federal hearings for the Supreme Court, for the cabinet picks and nominations, for the certain types of hearings, different types of hearings. In your local Supreme Court and legislature, they'll have some public hearings, and in your federal, they'll have a lot of public hearings. And so there's a whole network called C-SPAN that covers these things 24/7 when they're in chambers or in session, right? And so that is like you generally like called C-SPAN. This isn't C-SPAN, it's the PBS, but my point is that some people have maybe never heard an actual court case being deliberated. So I want to play just the beginning of this, and you'll hear Clarence Thomas come in for questioning, but you'll hear this young lady, I suppose she's a lawyer, giving either like her remarks or testimony, but she did a good job of just explaining the case and everything. So I want you to hear that. Some people maybe have never heard a actual case before. So here we go.
For decades to treat many conditions, including gender dysphoria. But SB1 singles out and bans one particular use. In Tennessee, these medications can't be prescribed to allow a minor to identify with or live as a gender inconsistent with the minor's sex. It doesn't matter what parents decide is best for their children. It doesn't matter what patients would choose for themselves. And it doesn't matter if doctors believe this treatment is essential for individual patients. SB1 categorically bans treatment when and only when it's inconsistent with the patient's birth sex. Tennessee says that sweeping ban is justified to protect adolescent health. But the state mainly argues that it had no obligation to justify the law and that SB1 should be upheld so long as it's not wholly irrational. That's wrong. SB1 regulates by drawing sex-based lines and declares that those lines are designed to encourage minors to appreciate their sex. The law restricts medical care only when provided to induce physical effects inconsistent with birth sex. Someone assigned female at birth can't receive medication to live as a male, but someone assigned male can. If you change the individual's sex, it changes the result. That's a facial sex classification, full stop, and a law like that can't stand on bare rationality. To be clear, states have leeway to regulate gender-affirming care, but here Tennessee made no attempt to tailor its law to its stated health concerns. Rather than impose measured guardrails, SB1 bans the care outright, no matter how critical it is for an individual patient. And that approach is a stark departure from the state's regulation of pediatric care in all other contexts. SB1 leaves the same medications and many others entirely unrestricted when used for any other purpose, even when those uses present similar risks. The Sixth Circuit never considered whether Tennessee could justify that sex-based line. Because the Equal Protection Clause requires more, this court should remand so that SB1 can be reviewed under the correct standard. I welcome the court's questions.
I welcome the court's question.
Much of your the latter part of your opening statement suggests that it seemed to suggest that there's an outright ban on this treatment, but that's not the case. It's really for minors. So why isn't this simply a case of age classification when it
That's
comes
Clarence
to these
Thomas, the
treatments, as opposed to
dishonorable
a
Clarence
ban,
Thomas.
as you suggested in your opening statement?
It's certainly true, Justice Thomas, that the statute classifies based on age, but it packages that age classification with a sex restriction and says that for all adolescents, you cannot take these medications if they're inconsistent with your sex. So I acknowledge that the state so far has not banned this care for adults, although I think that the arguments it's making that this isn't a sex-based line in the first place would equally apply in that context. But the court has likewise made clear that when you classify on the basis of multiple characteristics, you can't avoid heightened scrutiny just because you have a non-protected characteristic that accompanies the protected one. And if you look at it from the standpoint of the plaintiffs who are actually affected by this law, the reason I'm calling it a categorical ban is because the state has left no out for those patients to obtain these medications when there's a showing of individualized medical need. And that is, I think, a stark departure from how the state ordinarily handles issues related to measuring risks and benefits, even in the pediatric context.
Well, is there no difference in if a girl takes testosterone or if a boy takes testosterone?
So the district court specifically considered this question in detail and found that with respect to the risks that the state had identified, it was not substantiated that there would be unique risks associated with the cross-sex use of the hormones.
Is there no physiological difference?
Certainly, I understand that there are biological differences between males and females, but when it came to the specific risk factors that the state was focused on, what the district court found is that many of those risk factors would exist regardless of the birth sex of who is taking those medications.
Well, I'm more interested in whether or not there is a difference in testosterone and its reaction in a male as opposed to a female, and vice versa for estrogen.
So if you take hormones, they will prompt the development of secondary sex characteristics in whether you're a male or a female. If you take testosterone, you might develop a deeper voice register. You might have facial hair growth. And in fact, that's one of the intended effects of these treatments because that can be critical to helping manage gender dysphoria that transgender adolescents would otherwise experience. But I think when it comes to the question of whether that creates unique risks, the district court found that for the most part, the state had not substantiated those risks and that it leaves regulation of medication unrestricted, even in contexts where these same medications or others would pose a comparable set of risks.
General, can I just...
Okay. So next, I'm going to move us over here to this one, which is Ketanji Brown Jackson, who is our first ever Black woman Supreme Court Justice, federal Supreme Court Justice. And so Ketanji Brown Jackson tears into attorney's argument for banning transgender care for minors in Tennessee. Before I play it, I want to just say, for a youth that is ready to transition, it can be very discouraging. It can be very discouraging and kind of like kicking someone when they're on their last thread, and cause even suicidal ideation in our youth that they wouldn't be allowed to transition, even though they know that it's allowed some places, but just maybe not where they live. And so that's a context I think we need to add when we talk about gender affirming care for youth, and just humanizing it more. I think that largely in the mainstream conversation, we've gotten a lot of the conversations around gender affirming care and around healthcare and around gender affirming care for youth wrong, completely wrong. It's not just like during this election cycle, as we saw, it wasn't about reproductive justice. It wasn't just about women's rights. It wasn't just about abortion. It was about bodily autonomy and us going into an apartheid regime, a Jim Crow era regime. I'm going to keep saying that. I'm going to keep saying it as much as possible. People need to know that this is real. And so when you're voting against us and voting for a racist, y'all have voted away our bodily autonomy into the Supreme Court and their far-leaning, right-leaning things. And when we talk about pardons, when we talk about people getting out of jail, when we talk about people getting records expunged, getting cases dealt with or handled, or getting released from prison, those things are related to the Supreme Court. Your local Supreme Court and the federal. And they have installed all these right-wing judges on the locals, and they have installed 2 Supreme Court justices, tipping the scale of the Supreme Court to the point where we need to stack the court, which means that we need to add seats onto the court so that it can be more representative of the whole breadth of the United States. And so, anyways, we've gotten it wrong. And I'll come back to that on the transgender strategist little clip I have, but we've gotten it wrong a lot of times. It's about bodily autonomy and healthcare. At the end of the day, essential healthcare may not be essential to you, but it is essential to us, and transitioning is essential to us. No one chooses to be trans. I believe personally that we're trans from birth, but no one chooses to be trans. You would not go through the things that we have to go through if you didn't have to. You would not have to transform your body and medically transition if you didn't have to. No one is doing that. Also, no one is doing the going to jail on purpose to get surgery. Like, y'all need to quit it with the stuff. Like, stop it. Okay. I haven't listened to this part of the hearing, just the beginning part. So hopefully she really do tear into. I hope she tear into
the similarly situated argument that you make, and I hope to ask you about, I don't understand at all the similarly situated argument that you make, and I hope that you can help me, because I don't know how you can say both that girls and boys are not similarly situated at step 1 when this law is being evaluated and it's not making a sex-based classification. It seems to me that recognizing their lack of similarity, as you do in making the argument, is making a sex-based classification. So
I think our position is that if you're in the point where we're treating giving testosterone to a boy with a biological deficiency as the same thing as giving testosterone to a healthy biological girl who wants to transition, then there has to be some threshold inquiry that recognizes the biological differences between those two.
Right, but when you're doing that, you're making a sex-based classification. I mean, the very argument carries with it the characterization that we're trying to identify here. You start by saying it's different to treat a boy who's using this medication for a particular reason from a girl who's, okay, so that's a sex-based classification. Haven't we dealt with step 1 now? We should be going on to step 2. No. Intermediate scrutiny applies by the terms of what you're arguing.
I don't think that we agree that we've checked the box at step 1, because there is no medical treatment that boys can receive that girls cannot. So we disagree with the notion.
Didn't we already dispose of that kind of reasoning with our equal protection cases that looked at things like interracial marriage, where we said, even though it applies to both, it's still making a racial classification? Even though whites can't marry non-whites and non-whites can't marry whites in the statute, right? So both are equally disadvantaged. We said that's not an argument for why you shouldn't have a heightened scrutiny or why the statute is not making a race-based classification.
And that's not the argument that we're making.
Okay, so what is
we
your
are not arguing that you can discriminate and draw lines so long as you do so both against boys and against girls. We're arguing there is no sex-based line. If you're a boy and you go in to get puberty blockers, you can get the puberty blockers if you're going to use them for precocious puberty. You cannot get the puberty blockers if you're going to use them to transition. That is not a sex-based line. That is a purpose-based line. So our fundamental point here is not that you can discriminate against both sexes in equal degree. Our fundamental point is there is no sex-based line here, and the only way they get to a sex-based line is by equating fundamentally different treatments that defy medical reality and defy how the statute itself sets out what is a treatment.
And the treatments are different because of the biological sex of the person, right? I mean, that's what you said. The purposes are different because of the biological sex and why you're going in to get them.
Not at all. I mean, with puberty blockers, the purpose, nothing turns on sex. Take puberty blockers. There's nothing that turns on sex as to whether there's a sex-based classification there. Everything depends on what is the reason that you are using those puberty blockers for.
This one.
I'm Amy Goodman. The U.S. Supreme Court appears poised to
So that was Ketanji Brown Jackson basically saying that you cannot discriminate for us. They're using the words boy because they're talking about legal language and pre-transition adolescent youth. That basically trans women could not use a pre-transition, a young teen, a young pubescent AMAB, male at birth child, cannot use puberty blockers to specifically transition, but they're not trying to make it illegal for young girls to take testosterone and transition to male. They're trying to block puberty blockers for trans women is how I kind of think, or at least in these parts of the conversation, this part and that first part that I played, at least in those parts of the conversation, that is the case. But they're trying to argue that they're not trying to ban, breaking it down, they're trying to argue that they're not trying to ban the medications and treatment. They're trying to ban transitioning and using them for youth to transition. And then this is also the other piece about gender affirming care for youth that really needs to be debunked and really bothers me. Black and brown kids' parents is not finna sign them up to take hormones and do all of that. My kids are trans. They are adults now. They are exploring transitioning medically now. They identified as trans long before they medically transitioned. Even myself, I was 25. I waited like 3 years before I even tried to transition medically because I wanted to make sure that this was the direction I wanted my life to go in for sure. Even though I knew it was for sure. I wanted to know, could I do it? You know what I mean? And could I live and pass and live, you know, as a woman and see what that looked like before I started to change my body. And so it's deeply spiritual, it's deeply personal, even for youth, deeply spiritual, deeply personal. A lot of mental acrobatics, a lot of dysphoria, a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression. And we just have to debunk that Black parents and Black and brown parents is not just signing themselves up. I know that we see that with the Jazz Jennings and the Zaya Wade and the different people, but these are extremely rich. These are rich people. These are people who had a reality show. These are extremely rich basketball players' children in California. You know what I mean? Living in Hollywood. You know what I mean? Like, we just have to dispel with these narratives, and not to say that anything is wrong with them supporting their child, but even inside the LGBT community, we're not a monolith, and we have disagreements about how and when and what is the right age to transition. And so it just is a case-by-case basis. It just depends on that person. It depends on that child. And so y'all just have to get out of people's business. It is bullying children at the end of the day. And so now I'm going to play this right here with Chase Strangio.
uphold Tennessee's ban on gender-affirming care for transgender youth after hearing arguments in a case that could have major repercussions for transgender people across the United States. The Biden administration and the American Civil Liberties Union argued against the ban, saying it's a form of sex discrimination. But Chief Justice John Roberts and other right-wing justices appeared to reject that argument. After the oral arguments, Tennessee Attorney General Jonathan Skrmetti spoke outside the Supreme Court.
The people of Tennessee, acting through a bipartisan supermajority of their elected officials, made a similar choice. They passed SB 1 to protect kids. Half the states in the United States have done the same. The Constitution allows the states to protect kids from unproven life-altering procedures based on uncertain science. The states have exercised the power to regulate the practice of medicine for hundreds of years. The dramatic and unexplained increase in the use of these life-altering procedures on kids is exactly the sort of situation where the states should take notice and regulate. Now, adolescence is hard, and gender dysphoria is a heavy burden, and we need to remember that. But the evidence shows that the large majority of kids dealing with gender dysphoria will grow out of it unless they're put on these medications.
Yeah, that's struck down.
So that is the Attorney General of Tennessee trying to enact the ban on behalf of the Republican legislature.
On a state ban on interracial marriage.
And I guess my real concern, and maybe I'll just ask you to react to my loving parallel because I'm getting kind of nervous, is that in Loving, those same kinds of scientific arguments were made. So I'm reading here where the court says the argument is that
Loving, there's a movie on Netflix called Loving, and it's about interracial marriage. And again, these legal precedents are not just about who gets to do what. It's about our rights as citizens in this country, and y'all giving them away. A lot of people wouldn't be here if interracial marriage wasn't legal. That's not even my judge, but I'm just saying to you, like, these precedents have been long-standing. Roe v. Wade and Loving, for instance, have been long-standing for a reason. They were fought hard. They were hard fought, and they were there for a reason to protect us and to come out of the civil rights era with less rights now is crazy.
if the Equal Protection Clause does not outlaw miscegenation statutes because of their reliance on racial classifications, the question of constitutionality would thus become whether there was any rational basis for a state to treat interracial marriages differently from other marriages. On this question, the state argues the scientific evidence is substantially in doubt, and consequently, the court should defer to the wisdom of the state legislature in adopting its policy of discouraging interracial marriages. And so for me, this kind of idea that the way we look at it is not first, are you drawing these classifications, and then state, give us your evidence so we can make sure that there's a proper fit. If instead we're just sort of doing what the state is encouraging here in Loving, where you just sort of say, well, there are lots of good reasons for this policy, and who are we as the court to say otherwise? I'm worried that we're undermining the foundations of some of our bedrock equal protection cases.
Bedrock equal protection.
I share your concerns, Justice Jackson. I think one of the things that's happening in this case is we're seeing a lot of concerns that come in at step 2 of the analysis being imported into that threshold question of whether a classification has been drawn in the first instance.
Come on, Chase.
Concerns about real differences between males and females. That is exactly what heightened scrutiny is intended to test in the application of heightened scrutiny. If Tennessee can have an end run around heightened scrutiny by asserting at the outset that biology justifies the sex-based differential in the law, that would undermine decades of this court's precedent.
That was ACLU attorney Chase Stranger responding to Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. Chase is co-director of the American Civil Liberties Union's LGBTQ and HIV project. On Wednesday, he became the first openly transgender lawyer to argue a case before the Supreme Court. Chase, however this turns out, you have made history. Can you talk first about just the experience of being in the Supreme Court? Describe the nut of this case and how you think it went. What were you most surprised by?
Well, thank you, Amy. It's good to be with you and to relive some of those moments, which when you're in it, you don't necessarily really internalize it as it's happening. And so I'm still replaying everything in my mind. I'll sort of speak first to what it felt like in the courtroom yesterday. And the first thing I'll say is that it was incredible to have so many advocates who have worked to defend trans people for so long. And of course, notably yesterday, we were defended by the United States through the Solicitor General, who was up at the lectern for over an hour answering questions about the straightforward claims that both the United States and the private plaintiffs represented by ACLU and Lambda Legal and Aiken Gump were making, which is that there is a sex-based classification in this law. It is very difficult to try to explain that away because on the face of the statute that Tennessee passed, they say you cannot have treatment when it's inconsistent with your sex. And I think one of the striking things about yesterday's argument is that the Solicitor General of Tennessee could not find his way out of that straightforward reality of the law that the Tennessee legislature passed that he was trying to defend on the ground that it was sex neutral. Now, all of the conversations in the argument about the alleged risks of the treatment and what's happening in Europe, none of that changes. First of all, it's completely distorted. But of course, none of that changes that Tennessee's law draws this sex-based classification. And that is what Justice Jackson was really trying to get at the end, is that we are not doing this analysis correctly.
That was something that they tried to cite in the beginning of when I showed the beginning of the hearing with the clip with Clarence Thomas speaking. They tried to argue that because they blocked gender puberty blockers for youth for youth in the UK, even though it has long been legal, that because now they have a conservative movement there as in Europe as well, that because they've recently overturned it means that we should overturn it. That doesn't mean that. They made being gay illegal in 2 different countries in Africa. We gonna do that too? Yes. That's what's coming. That is what is coming. And anyway, I just had a whole lot of thoughts about Elon Musk and the porn and the AI and the things, and y'all need to get off of Twitter, okay? I don't know if it's blue sky or what's gonna be the thing, but y'all need to go get up off of there now, baby, because now y'all done got them. They own all that now, baby, forever. Lord. Anyway, okay. Lord.
And she really refocused us on
Why
that
do you
point.
think a far right-wing platform, they're saying in Project 2025 they want to make porn illegal, but y'all all on Twitter showing some of everything? Child, they're gonna be having AI 3D printed of your ass. Okay, sorry. Now, sorry.
This is Tennessee Solicitor General Matthew Rice speaking during Wednesday's Supreme Court oral arguments, interrupted by Justice Sonia Sotomayor.
As Justice Kavanaugh recognized throughout his questioning, they cannot stand up here and say that if these alternatives were imposed, that there would be no detransitioners. So they cannot eliminate the risk of detransitioners. So it becomes a pure exercise of weighing benefits versus risk. And the question of how many minors have to have their bodies irreparably harmed for unproven benefits is one that is best left.
I'm sorry, counselor. Every medical
Before she goes, one more thing about the Supreme Court. Sotomayor is gonna step down probably in the next year or so. So Trump is gonna pick another Supreme Court justice, pushing us further into the right for longer years if they put another younger person on. This is gonna be 30. This is not even about Trump no more, y'all. Y'all have to get this. This is gonna be 30, 40, 60, 70 years of this far right-wing court, because the Supreme Court is lifetime appointments. We have to stack the court and make it bigger and have more seats. We also have to vote and do what we can for stacking the court, as well as imposing term limits on them.
Has a risk. Even taking aspirin. There is always going to be a percentage of the population under any medical treatment that's going to suffer harm.
That's
taking a white man
Justice
drugs, there's
Sotomayor
always a
interrupting
risk.
Tennessee Solicitor General Matthew
So
Rice.
why
Talk
we
about the
can't take a little,
significance of this moment, Chase.
hormone?
One thing I'll say that was really powerful was just how passionate, particularly Justices Sotomayor and Jackson were yesterday. Sotomayor focused extensively on the harms to the adolescents at the center of this case and who are having their health care stripped away. And the point I think that she is making that is so important in that exchange with the Solicitor General of Tennessee is that Tennessee is getting up there and saying, we can do this because this medication carries risk. Now, the district court in this case found that Tennessee's allegations of harm and their prevalence were simply not supported by the record. But then importantly, there is no medical intervention that does not carry risk. That is part of medicine, balancing the risks and benefits. And in all other circumstances, what Tennessee does is allow doctors and parents and then adolescent patients to weigh those risks and benefits and make a decision about what is best for the individual patient. What Tennessee has done here is displaced that thoughtful, often painstaking process that parents and their children have gone through with their doctors and imposed this one-size-fits-all prohibition. And Tennessee really did struggle to justify that sweeping ban that they passed.
Chase, talk about the origins of this Tennessee case. Talk about who Skrmetti is and who the people are you're representing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the origins have to be placed in the context of this was a law that of what was going on nationally. This was a law that was passed in 2023 at a time when almost half the country passed laws just like it. These are not homegrown, constituent-driven pieces of legislation. These are model bills that are shipped out to legislatures across the country and then rushed through supermajority legislatures that have an anti-trans objective and orientation. So that's the context. They passed the law in March of 2023, and we shortly after filed a lawsuit to seek to have that law enjoined because we knew that hundreds of adolescents in Tennessee would lose.
They were model bills pushed out and rushed through Republican legislatures in over half the states in the country already from 2023 in the first Trump administration and the anti-trans legislation bills that they tried to pass, over 600 of them all over the country. Again, I say this, we beat back 2 bills last year here in Wisconsin.
Lose their health care, and future individuals who needed the health care would not be able to access it. We represent 3 adolescents and their parents who had been receiving this medical care in Tennessee, had that medical care cut off by operation of the law that was passed in March of that year, and then also represent a doctor, Dr. Susan Lacey, who provides this medical treatment both to cisgender and transgender individuals, and was barred from providing the medication to her transgender patients. And so we represented her as well, and we filed the lawsuit shortly after the law was passed by the legislature, and then have been litigating this case over the past 2 years. And when we lost at the federal appeals court, overturning the lower court's injunction of the law, in essence, allowing the law to go into effect, we took it to the Supreme Court.
Were you surprised by the fact that the Trump appointee, Neil Gorsuch, did not speak? Particularly interesting because he authored a 2020 ruling protecting transgender rights in the workplace. The case, of course, isn't the same, but the significance of this.
So, you come out of these arguments and obviously you can't predict what the justices are thinking, even based on their questions. And it was striking, as everyone has noted, that Justice Gorsuch did not say anything during the argument. I don't know what that means. Obviously, we think that the Justice Gorsuch's opinion, majority opinion in Bostock, that logic of that opinion clearly applies here. In Bostock, the court held that if an employer fires someone for being transgender, they are intentionally discriminating against them in part based on their sex. And that is because to discriminate against someone for being transgender is to discriminate against them because they have a gender identity different from their birth sex. That is exactly what this law does. It draws a line based on the fact that someone has a gender identity that differs from their birth sex. So there's a clear logical.
So when I played one of these, the points that they're trying to make on the Republican side is that, and with Project 2025, what I'm trying to highlight is that if they make it in Project 2025, one of the main things is that they're going to make it only be legal to be male or female, to be listed as and identify as male and female, and as far as documentation and policy. And so if they do that, we can't get no cases tried because they're going to say that discrimination against trans people does not count because trans is not a recognized gender at all. That's what they're trying to do. And get it past saying that we're not discriminating against your sex because it's not real. Okay. Now, this is an article from the Texas Tribune. Texas conservatives plan to further restrict trans lives this legislative session. Emboldened by the recent election, some Texas lawmakers are already filing bills that would dictate bathroom use, limit gender identity markers on documents, and restrict funding for surgeries. 8 years ago, when conservative state lawmakers tried to restrict what bathrooms trans people could use, moderate Republicans quietly killed the bill in a special session. Less than a decade later, that seems to be a distant memory. A fire right now has the legislature firmly in its grip, and emboldened by the recent election, they're gearing up to make growing trans animus the social issue of the session. Nationwide, Republicans have fully pushed these laws as a way to protect children by prohibiting them from medically transitioning before they turn 18 and stopping trans students from playing in sports teams that don't align with their biological sex. Texas has so far been marched in lockstep with his conservative cousins in passing laws aimed at children, but some lawmakers want to further restrict the lives of trans adults as well, filing bills about bathroom use, gender identity markers on official documents, and funding for gender reassignment surgery. The American people, and especially Texans that I represent, they've had enough of it, said Brian Harrison, an arch conservative from Midlothian, told Texas Tribune. They're forcing you to celebrate something that's at odds with objective reality, in many instances forcing tax dollars to fund it. A limit on how far Texas will go on this issue lies in the hands of conservative lawmakers. I don't see any reason why the state would moderate its position at this point, says Andrew Proctor, a political science professor at the University of Chicago who studies LGBT issues. A message is born. In 2016, the U.S. Supreme Court legalized same-sex marriage nationwide, and conservatives began casting around for a new social issue to back. They landed the small but growing trans population and the incremental discrimination protections they gained during the Obama administration. The next year, in 2017, there were a dozen anti-trans bills in state houses across the country. Many, like Texas' bathroom bill, failed. At the time, 57% of Republicans said society had gone too far in accepting trans people. Then they held in on children. Once you go to my daughter's athletics or in her locker room and showers, once you can start giving kids gender transfusions and mutilate them and sterilize them, when we're in a whole different world. All major medical associations acknowledge that gender dysphoria, the distress someone can feel with their physical presentation, doesn't match the gender they identify as, is a real medical condition best treated with gender-affirming care. That can range from social transition, in which someone goes by different pronouns or dresses differently, to medical treatments, including puberty blockers, hormone therapy, and surgeries. Minors rarely undergo surgery to transition, and all decisions are made in consultation with their parents and medical professionals. Nonetheless, the conservative messaging resonated. Last year, almost 80% of Republicans said that the society had gone too far in accepting trans people. And this year, even with Texas lying dormant, there were 600 169 anti-trans bills filed in state legislatures across the country. This is serious. Okay, so let's get into what in the Nepo baby. What in the Nepo baby? Oh, I got one more. This right here.
Polling shows
Trans
that
issue.
Americans actually seem to be growing less empathetic to the transgender cause. But what's behind it? What's going on here? Well, some activists and movement leaders think that it is due to the transgender movement's confrontational and accusatory approach. And I'm not saying that. This lengthy piece published in the New York Times this week really did delve into it. So on social media in particular, some of you
because it's not that serious. And I'm going to be wrapping up pretty soon, but thank you for joining me. And what I will say about this video and what she just said is cis fragility. There is no gay agenda. There is no trans agenda. We do not hold enough power in society to enact an agenda on the rest of you all. Then passing marriage equality was a white person's issue, just like the rights of Black people was not a concern to white people until they wanted to be able to marry Blacks. Cis fragility. We do not have the power to enact no agenda on y'all. We do not have the power to really truly cancel no one. There is no real such thing as cancel culture. Chris Brown, DaBaby, even Diddy had an album out last year. All of these people still playing R. Kelly music. Like all of these people that y'all are so like, oh my God, they're canceled. They're still making money. They're still rich. They're still okay. Yes, there are consequences to some of the things that you do, like a Chris Brown beating up Rihanna. Yes, he would get canceled from something just like Will Smith and Chris Rock at the Oscars. Yes, the Oscars wouldn't want you back after you walked up on stage and smacked someone. That is not cancel culture. That is a consequence of something that you chose to do. Sorry. Even that white lady that used to cook and had the cooking show, she was on Dancing with the Stars too. I can't think of her name. I want to say it's Paula, but her, right? She still was in jail rich. Martha Stewart still in jail rich, still making money, still gonna be fine. So now that also can tie us and lead us into Nepo baby. But hold on. Last thing I wanted to say, y'all amplify these people. For instance, Just Hilarious coming for this girl on TikTok who was talking about reproductive health care being important for people who do not just identify as cis women, which is true because there are trans men and other people who identify other ways that maybe have AFAB parts, female at birth parts, and need female at birth parts health care. Okay? Just Hilarious chose to single out this girl on TikTok and harass her and start a hate campaign that was so hurtful. Like, y'all don't know what it's like to be trans and to hear these commercials and to hear Just Hilarious in a position and a platform that we was trying to support her in getting on the Breakfast Club. And I'm not putting everything on Just Hilarious at all, but what I am saying is that it did unlock a lot of hate, vitriol, and rhetoric the summer before last, and it was hurtful. It was very hurtful. And it was from every direction. Comedy hype. You know? It was on comedy hype. Like, come on now, you know? That's my mom. Anyway, okay, so I'm gonna move to wrap up. I just wanted to point that out about Just Hilarious. Y'all platform these people and then y'all are mad, like, oh my God, they're coming for the straight people. That's called cis fragility. Just like white fragility and male fragility. No one is attacking you. Y'all are fine. We're being attacked. Sorry. No one has sympathy for these people that y'all just want to stand by, even though you know they were wrong. I'm not going to say every situation, but R. Kelly, for instance, he was on trial for child pornography. Why are y'all still playing the songs? Why are y'all still trying to make it make sense? When I was in Boston at the club, they played R. Kelly over and over. Why? What do you not get? In his own lyrics, he put stuff about young girls and doing stuff. What do you not get? It's just as crazy to me. It's just as crazy to me. No one is attacking the straights. Y'all aren't losing anything just because we have gender affirming healthcare that you can't even spell, that you didn't even know about until the Republicans tried to make it illegal. It been legal. There been trans women in girls' sports. It been legal. There are trans Olympians and on Olympic staff. Y'all have to stop it with this. That's all I wanted to get to with this white woman. We're gonna move on from her. Nepo baby. Biden versus Trump. Nepotism. Trump cases thrown out. Hunter Biden pardon. Let's go to... Here we go.
And this is where I, like many of the others who are frustrated by Joe Biden's hypocrisy on this, is not that he said he wouldn't. I don't know why he said that he wouldn't to begin with. Pardon Hunter Biden. But what they did say at the White House in our conversations is that they would not get involved before the full trial was over, before the sentencing of Marilyn Mosby. They would not get involved. Guess who hasn't been sentenced?
Hunter Biden.
Hunter Biden. In fact, the same argument that Joe Biden used in his statement about why he wanted to pardon Hunter Biden is because of selective prosecution. That is what we argued in the Marilyn Mosby case. It's the exact same thing. And so my
It's
issue
what
is...
my lawyer argued in mine.
Exactly. It's the same unit.
Now, do y'all remember seeing this man and seeing his case in September that the prison system destroyed the evidence or corrupted the evidence that would have corroborated his innocence, and that they knew he was innocent and that he served 24 years and they still executed him in September of 2024? But Biden gets to pardon his son. What in the Nepo baby? Are you serious? This is how bald these white people is finna get with their shenanigans. Donald Trump said because of Biden pardoning Hunter, that he's going to pardon all the January 6ers for sure now. Like, they're not going to take no for an answer. Which they wasn't anyway and was a part of their agenda anyway. But the point being is now they can justify it. Joe Biden going out on this lie is just like the lie he lied when he said he would be a one-term president and that he handicapped Kamala's campaign into 107 days. Him going out on a lie, him taking his family through a lie, him taking his staff through a lie, him taking Corinne Jean-Pierre through a lie like this at the very end of his presidency is shameful. It's really shameful and disgusting. And he did that to Kamala on purpose. And this clearly shows it. He was so ambitious. He was so ready to be president again that he didn't think that he wasn't going to win to be able to pardon Biden. Hunter.
Is the president considering blanket
For him to lie and make Corinne Jean-Pierre have to lie and be on her record? Corinne Jean-Pierre is the White House press secretary. She is a queer Black woman in DC. I follow her for a very long time, since the first Trump administration, and I love her. And for him to have to make her go out on a lie as well is shameful.
Those are groups of people who are
shame. Where is Marquesa? Shame.
So look, I'm not going to get ahead of the president, but what I can say is that the president is reviewing other pardons and commutations. And I do want to lay out a little bit of the history, the history the president has taken over the last almost 4 years, actions that he's taken, because it's important to note that the president has so far issued 20 individual pardons and 122 commutations. He's issued more sentence commutations at this point in his presidency than any of his recent predecessors at the same point in their first terms. This is in addition to groundbreaking categorical pardons that the president issued to address marijuana possession, convictions, military convictions in the LGBTQ plus community. And as recently as April, if you go back a couple of months, the president issued 11 pardons, 5 commutations for individuals convicted.
But he didn't pardon Marilyn Mosby or Marcellus Williams.
Violent drug offenses who demonstrated
as press.
Imagine a world where creativity and technology combine.
Secretary, you committed to speaking to the American people, and I quote, in a transparent way, in a truthful way, and an honest way.
Yes.
And then in July, here at this podium, you were asked about the president pardoning his son, and he said, it's a no, it will be a no, it's a no.
Yes, and that is exactly right.
Of the president's son and that pardon, it became a yes. I'm wondering if you would like to explain to us, the American people, really why the information that you provided turned out not to be true.
And I answered this question on Monday. We spent about 30 minutes on this, almost 30 minutes, roughly 30 minutes on this particular issue. And I'm just going to reiterate what I said on Air Force One to your colleagues when I did the gaggle. And look, if you look at his statement, it's pretty comprehensive. The statement that he put out on Sunday when he made this decision to pardon his son, Hunter Biden. It's in his own voice. I think it takes you through his thinking. And he did. He wrestled with this.
How much wrestling you got to do?
In his statement, in his own voice, that he
how
made
much
that
wrestling you got to do
past weekend. And
all the dams, all the media dams,
when
is
you
like,
think about how the president
I would have did it too. He should have did. No, he shouldn't have.
They have. And a couple of things, and I said this on Monday as well. Republicans said they weren't going to let up, weren't going to stop.
Y'all play all that
Recently
politeness and political
appointees for
correctness.
law enforcement have said on the campaign,
So they all know that
they
they
were out
asses
for
is going to
retribution.
be
I think we should
persecuted
believe their words, right? We should believe
from a
what they said.
retaliatory Trump
The
administration.
sentencing was coming up, as you all know. There was
Mika
a
and Joe
sentencing
going
coming
down
up,
to the
and
Mar-a-Lago,
president said this in his statement,
all of their asses.
that Hunter and his
They're
family
trying to
have
cover
been
their
through
asses.
enough is
and
enough.
leave the rest of us
And he
to
wrestled
hang
with
and
these
dry
circumstances,
and to
these change of
starve
circumstances ultimately.
when they
And the
collapse
combination
the damn
of that,
economy.
the president changing his mind and issuing, certainly led to the president changing his mind and issuing this pardon. And one thing that I do want to point to, which I think is important, is what Congressman James Clyburn said. When he was interviewed, he said, "I am absolutely."
Why would they
okay
tell
with
him
it.
to do something
I don't know how many people
that
urged him
he
to do
damn
so,
near
but I
should get
did.
impeached for?
He seemed to be reticent about it. This is what Clyburn said when he spoke to the president 2 weeks
It's
ago.
a lot of like
But I
capitulating. It's a lot of like covering their
quote,
asses. It's a lot of
emphasized
like
the fact that we
weirdo
as
stuff going
fathers
on.
have obligations to our children. So that was a conversation that the congressman himself had with the president two weeks ago, said that the president was reticent when he encouraged the president to do so. And this weekend, he thought about it.
They let Trump look like a hero for getting shot at. They tried to cover it up. The man that tried to shoot him was a Republican. He's a Republican. All the violence, all the everything. Now we don't even have the moral high ground for the Dems to stand on that they be trying to stand on. It's ridiculous. And never before was somebody grazed in the hood and with the trade and with niggas and with guns and all that. Don't nobody get street cred from getting grazed. Y'all done gave this man false street cred. I can't do it. But I also can't do it with Jim Clyburn and Sonny Hostin and Anna Navarro and other people telling him that he needed to pardon his son. No, bitch, he needed to pardon us from this damn election. Where was the political high ground? Where was the pardon when y'all just let Trump cases get thrown out? That's gonna be my closing. Is just Marilyn Mosby, and then Trump's case is getting thrown out. Civil rights advocates, lawmakers urge President Biden to pardon Marilyn Mosby. Civil rights advocates are intensifying their calls for President Joe Biden to pardon former Baltimore State's attorney Marilyn Mosby, who is currently under house arrest following her convictions in federal cases earlier this year. This renewed push for clemency in Mosby case comes on the heels of Biden's surprising decision to pardon his son Hunter Biden after previously stating that he would not do so. Prominent attorney Ben Crump and political strategist Angela Rye emphasized that while Biden's actions towards his son may have been justified in some circles, they serve as a reminder that justice is not served for so many in this country. In a joint statement released on December 2nd, Crump and Rye pointed out the stark reality that thousands of individuals remain wrongfully convicted and are currently incarcerated in federal prisons. They expressed concern over the perceived selective prosecution of Hunter Biden and highlighted that he is not the only one facing such scrutiny. Their focus shifted to Mosby, who was convicted earlier this year on charges of mortgage fraud and perjury. As it stands, she is serving a year, at home of home confinement, followed by an additional 2 years of supervised release, losing her law license, losing her home, a property, threatened with going to jail in the wake of going after Breonna Taylor's killer. Where is it?
The Mueller report,
Sorry.
or the impeachment hearings. Like, this was a very it was a witch hunt, and so I don't really. I think putting a lot of this emphasis on Hunter Biden's pardon, quite frankly, somebody tweeted, I can't remember who it was. It was like the executive director of Pointer, I think. Somebody tweeted and said, no matter how you feel, or posted, I should say, because it wasn't on Twitter, but no matter how you feel about the Hunter Biden story, it certainly is not the biggest story this week. And I just think that's a big part of it. Like, why are we even talking about, yeah, he pardoned his son. Anybody's going to do that. Like, okay, he did it next. Let's think about all of the craziness coming out of the Trump administration. But in the echo chambers, all you heard about was this Hunter Biden pardon. So no, I don't think he was wrong at all.
Let me ask you this, because there are folks who are feeling somewhat frustrated because when they have sought pardons for people who are equally deserving, this administration has been silent. One of them is a case that we're very familiar with and close to, is our friend Marilyn Mosby. And my biggest gripe here is not that he pardoned Hunter Biden. Again, Tip, to your point, I would have agreed and done the same thing. It is the fact that the same prosecutor who was attached to and prosecuted and was on a witch.
Before she moves on, Hunter Biden lied on a gun registration form. And they're saying that that's not usually a crime that is persecuted. And that's why Biden pardoned him. You should have had Merrick Garland persecute Donald Trump.
Against Maryland is the same prosecutor who was assigned to the Hunter Biden case. This man's name is Leo Wise. Y'all should look him up. We talked about it on the podcast prior. Before I go down my rabbit hole, Andrew, I want to hear where you're at on this.
Well, can I before you answer, Andrew, can I ask Angela a quick question? Because we love, Marilyn, obviously, we know her personally, but what does, because she didn't serve prison time. So if you can just remind us, what is her current punishment, I guess, and why a pardon matters for her.
So Marilyn Mosby is currently on house arrest. She is someone who is in the carceral system still. She has to check in with a probation officer. She has to follow a curfew. She has a job offer that, you know, she was really excited about that she's not been able to take because it requires some travel. Her law license is still on the line. The forfeiture of her property, the properties that she purchased, still on the line. She had to sell one. There's another one that is potentially in jeopardy because of this conviction. And so there is so much on the line. Just because you didn't actually go to jail doesn't mean that you're not in the carceral system. And I will tell you guys, the other thing that is a little troubling for me, and this is where I, like many of the others who are frustrated by Joe Biden's hypocrisy on this, is not that he said he wouldn't. I don't know why he said that he wouldn't to begin with. Pardon Hunter Biden. But what they did say at the White House in our conversations is that they would not get involved before the full trial was over, before the sentencing of Marilyn Mosby. They would not get involved. Guess who hasn't been sentenced?
Hunter Biden.
Hunter Biden.
Yeah.
So I just need to understand what it is. If you say, well, you know, we would get involved, but y'all didn't turn in a pardon application. Okay, we turned in a pardon application. Well, we wouldn't get involved, but she hasn't been sentenced yet. Okay, now she's been sentenced. What is the holdup now? Because it's the same person. In fact, the same argument
hold up with Gaza
in
and
his
that ceasefire.
about why he wanted to pardon
They was
Hunter
covering
Biden
their
is
ass
because of
and not
selective
working.
prosecution. That is what we argued in the Marilyn Mosby case.
And they
It's the
hid
exact same
Kamala
thing.
in the
And so
back
my
It's
issue
what my
is-
lawyer argued in mine.
who are out there to
Exactly.
run.
It's the same unit, right? There are folks right now, Chokwe Lumumba, who's being targeted by this same Department of Justice, same agents that were involved in Andrew's case.
Chokwe
Over and
Lumumba,
over
yeah.
again. It's the same thing. And so
Mayor
we
of Jackson,
keep-
Mississippi.
Yes.
Black mayor, Jackson, Mississippi.
Surprise, surprise. So we keep going through this same thing. And Marilyn Mosby is an example of a larger issue with the justice or the injustice system and the carceral system. It has to be fixed. And if Joe Biden, who is responsible for authoring the crime bill, cannot see the issue here, he's already said, you know, we're going to pardon some marijuana offenses. Pardon all of them, all nonviolent drug
And y'all
offenses,
didn't want to vote
period.
for
Do you know
Biden
44%
this time.
of those incarcerated in federal prison are drug-related offenses?
I voted for
Pardon
Biden
these
because of
folks.
Kamala Harris.
Some of this is the vestige of your work.
Y'all didn't want to vote for
And it can't just
Biden this
apply to your
time.
son. You can't just have
Then y'all should have never voted for
compassion
his ass after the
in your
90s
heart
crime bill
for
in
your
the
son
first
who
place.
struggle with addiction. There are
Right.
many people
Half
who
of
struggle
our
with addiction
people that's still
who
in
have lied
jail
on
from the 90s
applications
is
or
still
who
in
stole
jail
because of
because
their
Joe
addiction.
Biden.
You have to have compassion for all these people.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. When you mentioned the drug system and almost half the
I
prison
campaigned
population
for Joe
being
Biden
there as a
when
result of,
Kamala Harris
we
was
also
announcing
should say
his
in
running
direct
mate.
credit to the United States government, who is in part, quite a great part, responsible for much of the infiltration of drugs into this country, the introduction of it into our communities very specifically, and those are facts and not fiction. The other consequence of partly of Maryland's, the penalties that she faced.
With your conscience, the conviction and courage of your beliefs, and spoke to real life policy, maybe, just maybe, you can inspire a new base of voters, because you know who did that?
Right.
Donald Trump.
What makes people any different? Does your last
Okay. This is the last thing I'm gonna share. Special counsel Jack Smith on Monday filed motions to drop all federal charges against President-elect Donald Trump regarding his mishandling of classified documents in his effort to overturn the 2020 presidential election in the lead up to the deadly Jan 6 attack on the U.S. Capitol. Hours later, U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan granted Smith's motion to dismiss the Jan 6 related indictment, formally bringing an end to the case that alleged Trump unlawfully conspired to overturn his 2020 loss to President Joe Biden. Trump was first indicted in June 2023 in a federal court in Miami on 37 felony counts related to mishandling classified documents that he took from the White House to his Florida home that they raided his house for. Okay. This is a convicted con artist, scam people out of Trump University, tried to run a hate campaign on the Central Park 5, didn't pay contractors and workers, failed businessmen, multiple bankruptcies, sex allegations, those cases, as well as the Georgia case with Fannie Willis and Letitia James case in New York that crumbled the Trump organization in New York, banned from conducting business in New York, and owes the state of New York right now over $300 million. With that, I love you all. Thank you all so much. Okay, I have like just 2 more things just to show you really super quick. And that is my event next Saturday with Laughing Liberally MKE, where I will be doing an interview. It's a political comedy show. Then we have Time Sayre's annual sock drive, his 7th annual sock drive, on December 20th. We have the Celebrating Black Queer Excellence Winter Lights Gala and Awards Show, February 8th, 2025. Get your tickets, cash your nominations for the awards ceremony, and congratulations to Lifetime Achievement Award recipient Vincent Morrow. And I will be co-hosting the gala with Montel, and we are super excited. So thank you all so much. I appreciate you for bearing with me. Thank you for sticking with me through technical difficulties. This is the 3rd episode, and I love you all. Please connect with me. Please leave comments and feedback. And I'm just glad I got to get through everything and share some space and time with you all again. And I appreciate y'all that tried to tune in yesterday as well. So thank you all so much and have a good evening. I have to go write a 3-page paper. Bye. And eat.